Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is 10 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta. Saturday morning, August the 20th. I'm glad to be here. This is Worldwide Epidemic of Child Abuse and Human Rights Abuses. It's a half-an-hour show that I like to do on Saturdays, and it's looking at the issues around the world, regarding child rights, child abuse, and human rights abuses. It's horrible. We know the situations. I mean, anybody who reads the paper and anybody who's online, looking at the news, it's just being reported all the time about this situation around the world. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And, we're all one. People like to think that we're not, but actually we are, because we all share this space. And, this is ridiculous that this stuff is going on. So I like to sort of get on here and gripe about some of this stuff that I see going on out here. And, I'm always paying attention to what's going on internationally as well as nationally. Like, I'm not just interested in child rights for North America, I'm interested in child rights and human rights worldwide, right? And so, it's just really disturbing, some of the stuff that you see that we know is happening. And yet, what are we going to do about it? There are groups who are working within their own countries to try to stop this stuff, but yet it goes on, it continues on. It's the same with child abuse in North America, with all the, the $105 billion, which is a stat that I saw last year. It was a stat that I saw, it might have been, I'm not sure if it has to have been at least 6 months ago, that I saw this stat that said $105 billion annually was pumped out in the United States alone because of child abuse. And that's not to stop child abuse, that's just because of child abuse. $105 billion annually. And so, even within our own countries in North America, United States and Canada, we can't even stop this stuff. The child sex trade, the child sex trade industry, and pedophilia and all this stuff. We can't even stop it here, let alone around the world. And the ridiculous situation that it really is just, it shows you where people's hearts are. Like, it really shows you where mankind's hearts are. They're disturbed. They're sick. They're mentally ill. There's just something so completely wrong with people who abuse children in any way, and especially sexually, right? This is so incredibly wrong. Of course, it's been going on since time began. It's not like it's anything new. And if you go back and you look at the history books and you look at the stuff that when they started writing, I mean, this has been going on since time began, right? I just think of 2011. Let's just wake up and smell the coffee. What used to be socially, what used to be acceptable is no longer acceptable, and so things have to change. And there's a whole body of people out here who say that change is needed, and that's all there is to it. There's a whole other part of this world that thinks that why they want to be able to use children sexually. They want to be able to do whatever they want to do to children. There's a whole other part of the world that says no, it's incredibly wrong. It has to stop. And this is why I do what I do. Right? I'm just here to back up those who believe that that it's wrong. You know what I mean? And so we need everybody's voice in on this. And so it's good to be a voice, right? So I don't mind doing this stuff. I like to talk about this stuff because it bothers me that there's children out here. I know I wouldn't want to be in their shoes. There's an article on IRIN, I-R-I-N, that's Humanitarian News and Analysis, a service of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. It was posted August the 1st, so it's, it's a little bit old, but it's still there. And this particular article is called Madagascar Sex for School Fees, right? And I was reading this, and I'm like, I wouldn't want to be this girl. I wouldn't want to be these children over here in this country, I grew up in an abusive home, and, it was what it was. It was absolutely horrific. But then again, you're looking at some of the situations around the world, and these people, these young children are selling their bodies just for money to go to school. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. It's incredibly wrong. And yet, what are they going to do? If they don't sell their bodies for sex, then how are they going to go to school, right? There's got to be a better way, right? It's like, okay, can we not think of a better way? Can we not think of another route to go? You know what I mean? Like, this is ridiculous that this is still going on. And I think anybody who, if nobody was buying, then there wouldn't be an issue. And then the governments will be forced to think of something else. But because people are interested in using children for sex, it's always going to remain that way until we can get people to stop thinking that way about children. Children, I just believe that children should be allowed to be children, and I just think that adults should have sexual relationships and sex with adults. You know, like why is there's always been this huge portion of society that thinks that adult child sex relationships are okay, and they're not. They never have been. A child's body's not meant for that, right? And you want to talk about research being done, like the research that they're looking into this stuff. I mean, it's obvious. Anybody with half a brain, if you have a brain the size of a pea, you would know that a child's body is not made for that. You know what I mean? And I'm speaking from personal experience. You know what I mean? So this is the issue. This just really bothers me. You know what I mean? And so I like to get on here and gripe and complain about these issues. I just thank everybody for tuning into my shows. You know what I mean? I really do. So Madagascar Sex for School Fees, 1st of August from IRIN News and Analysis. This is from Antananarivo, Madagascar. The ambition of 16-year-old Madagascan schoolgirl Nadine is to open that's her fake name for the article, is to open a clothes boutique after completing a college course in textile design. But in the meantime, along with 8 of her friends, she has turned to sex work to pay for her tuition fees, charging up to US $7 a time. She works in the poor Antananarivo suburb of 67 hectares. The reason I sought money, quote unquote, is because my parents were in financial difficulty. They have difficulties and I can help them. It's me who's paid my school fees since I was 13 years old. I was scared, but I made an effort because of my parents' money problems, she told IRIN. And most of them, my friends, quote unquote, this is her talking here, are like me. They are looking after their parents through sex work, she said. Anecdotal evidence of the increasing numbers of commercial sex workers and growing homelessness in Madagascar's capital, Antananarivo, is providing a snapshot of the country's descent to deeper poverty. More than 3 years ago, after Andry Rajoelina deposed President Mark Ravalomanana, with the help of the military, the imposition of international sanctions, the cancellation of preferential trade agreements, and the withdrawal of international aid are driving up the social indicators of desperation. Well, yeah, this is what happens. I mean, these countries get cut off, and they already have problems. So you think about the situation, once these issues arise within these third world countries where they actually really have very little internal, infrastructure, then it's just they're screwed. And so we see this going on all around the world. I mean, you look at every single country around the world. If you're not, one of the countries that actually has money, you're going to be suffering, man. And it's that health and social workers are reporting a worrying increase in the levels of sex work, particularly among children who use the proceeds to pay for their education. While a local NGO that provides education for homeless children is reporting increased enrollments. Quote unquote, I'm always a bit scared, but the room I rent for $5 a day has security, said Nadine. Despite using condoms, she's still concerned about becoming pregnant, as happening to a class colleague of hers. So about half of the $60 a month she gets goes on private school fee. The rest she gives to her parents, who think she's a waitress. Both her parents lost their $50 per month pay after the closure of textile factories. They said about 150,000 people in the capital working directly and indirectly for textile factories became unemployed after the USA canceled the country's membership of the African Growth and Opportunity Act on December 31st, 2009, following Rajoelina's coup. So the country's in dire straits, right? Like, I mean, this is, who suffers? The kids do, you know what I mean? Like, it's just not good. It's absolutely horrific. So these are the issues that are facing children. Children are facing, and they're facing children. I mean, my God, like it's going on around the world. It's not just Madagascar. But I just wanted to bring attention to that article. You can kind of go to IRIN, and get some of the news there. They have lots of good information about what's going on around the world. And the next article that I wanted to talk about here, and this is extremely disturbing. I mean, this bothers me just as much as the other one, and this has always bothered me, this kind of stuff, like people using children sexually and being allowed to flaunt it and get away with it in the public. It's like in Afghanistan. I really want to sort of bring a little bit of information to people who may not even realize, I study all things Afghanistan. I was even learning Persian until about a year ago. I got too busy to learn it because I really want to get involved in Afghanistan to help the children there. And the issue is and mainly women and children. But there's just this huge issue going on where, it's been going on forever, Afghanistan has no problem using boys, especially for sex toys. You know what I mean? If they can have these high-ranking officials and people with money, people with influence within the country, you know, who have lots of money and who have sort of status and have power, they will just flaunt these boys. They'll just walk them around. They're their sex toys. And this just makes me sick to my stomach because that's what the Romans were doing. I mean, these are just old, you know, traditions from from Roman times when Romans were doing this. And, you know, this is just absolutely sick and twisted. I'm sorry, but I don't agree with it. I think it's incredibly wrong. Children should be allowed to be children. You know what I mean? Like, why are people using children sexually? It just bothers me. Because, see, I think that, you know, people's gender and people's, you know, sexuality preferences and whatnot, that's their own business. You know what I mean? So you know, I'm not homophobic, you know. But the thing is, to me, I'm just, you know, hey, that's their business, right? The issue is these are children. You know, these are young boys, like between the ages of 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. That's so incredibly wrong. You know what I mean? To do to a child. They're so messed up anyway over there. You know what I mean? Their culture, their values. Like, I'm not running them down. I love these people, and that's why I want to help them. They're one of the most influential and most interesting peoples on the planet because of where they were located for you know, since time began. Right? The people were very much Western, right, for the longest time until you know, the other, you know, crazy fundamentalists got in there and changed it all. But they were very much Western, and they were very much Roman, you know, because the Romans, all these people had been tromping through their country for centuries, right? The Chinese, the Western Europeans, the people that even, you know, especially people like the Romans and stuff, have been walking through their country for years, and they had so many different influences. They had influences from the east, you know, they had influences from the west, they had influences from the south, and you know, from all directions, right? Because of where they were in the old the trade routes, right? And so I find their culture, you know, from before they got screwed up with this religious fundamentalist crap. They had an interesting, very cool culture, but on the other hand, they had some seriously twisted ideas on what's okay. You know what I mean? And so now, because the fundamentalist group got in there, you know, now they just don't treat anybody well. You know, it's just all about the men, and women have no rights. Children really have no rights, but children have more rights than the men do, but only the boys, right? The girls and the women are just treated lower than dogs. I mean, they treat their dog better than they would a woman or a girl. So this just makes me sick, and that's why I'm open. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's exactly why I am opening my mouth and I'm speaking out, because people, you know, women are dying over there just because they're walking down the street. You know, they're being assaulted and raped and beaten, and there's no help for them. There's no justice. There's no help. It's probably one of the worst. It actually is probably one of the worst countries to live in if you're a woman or you're a girl, right? And even if you're a boy, because then you got people targeting you for sex, right? Because these people use boys for sex, right? Because they don't like girls or women, so they turn to, you know, after they've disfigured and totally practically killed their women and the girls, you know, because they just believe that they should be allowed to just do this and destroy their women. They go after the boys, right? Because they don't want to have anything to do with the women, so they just use these boys for sex. And this just makes me so incredibly sick, right? You want to talk about rampant pedophilia, you know what I mean? And it's just allowed in the public. Like here, you know, there's laws and there's laws against this stuff. It's a crime, and it is a crime. And you know, in their country, it's not a crime. In their country, it's just fine and dandy. Do whatever you want to children, you know, whatever you want. It just all goes over there. That's why I'm just opening my mouth and I'm speaking out against this stuff, because this is just incredibly wrong, and we all know it's wrong. And I like to be the, you know, sort of a bit of a conscience for everybody to say, look, it's wrong. So get involved with groups who are doing some great work over there, because there are some groups who are doing some great work over there, and they're mostly grassroots. Look for the small ones. They're the ones getting the job done. And, you know, get involved, right? Because people need help. You know, I volunteer for the Canadian Women for Women Afghanistan. I'm no longer the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. I just resigned from there a couple days ago, and I love them guys. I always will. It was personal reasons, and I just felt that I had to move on. And so, you know, I still volunteer for all these groups, right? So I volunteer for Canadian Women for Women Afghanistan. I volunteer for the CHF, that's the Canadian Hunger Foundation. And I also volunteer with the CANILF, that's the Canadian International Learning Foundation, and I've done very little for these guys because I've been so busy with Dreamcatchers, right? So, but now that I'm no longer with Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, I'm going to be working again to help these people out in their mission to help other people around the world, and also I'll be locally involved. I'm with the Lamplighter organization and Lamplighter movement, and that's with Marjorie McKinnon, and it's a group that offers support and provides support for people who have been, sexually assaulted, child sexual abuse survivors, domestic violence and whatnot. So that's what I'll be doing locally, and also working locally, try to help out people locally too. So I'm not just all about international stuff, right? Really want to be sort of helping out in every single arena that I can. And I have to work in the meantime. I got to support myself. So it's like, it's hard, but we can do whatever we can do. That's what I say. Just get involved. And by becoming educated, really, that's the issue, by knowing that these things are happening. These things are happening, and this is why we have to do something about it. Like, for instance, this article comes from www.sfgate.com, and that's where this comes from. This is an old article, but I brought it up because I want to read sort of what's behind the scenes on this bachabazi thing in Afghanistan, where men are using boys for sex toys, right? It says, this is from August 29, 2010. There's lots of articles since then about this. This is still happening. It's showing no signs of slowing down, because people over there think that, the men over there, it's just the men, think that it's perfectly fine to use children sexually, right? And this is like so rampant. They actually encourage it, you know what I mean? And it just makes me sick, right? It makes me sick to my stomach. I just think, this is why we're fighting against this stuff in North America, because it's all wrong, you know what I mean? And so I don't mind saying this. I don't mind getting up and speaking out, because I don't care if I'm popular or not, and I really don't care if I have friends or not. This stuff needs to change, you know what I mean? And we all have to get involved, right? So Afghanistan's Dirty Little Secret from Joel Brinkley, Sunday, August 29th, 2010. That's when this article came out. So it's an old, but I just want to kind of take a look at it, because I want to sort of let people know what's going on. Most people may not know this, right? Western forces fighting in southern Afghanistan had a problem. Too often, soldiers on patrol passed an older man walking hand in hand with a pretty young boy, and their behavior suggested he was not the boy's father. Then British soldiers found that young Afghan men were actually trying to touch and fondle them. Military investigator Anna Maria Cardinali told me these soldiers didn't understand. All of this was so disconcerting that the Defense Department hired Cardinali, a social scientist, to examine this mystery. Her report, Pashtun Sexuality, startled not even one Afghan. But Western forces were shocked and repulsed, right? Because this is the okay in their country. So they said, for centuries, Afghan men have taken boys roughly 9 to 15 years old as lovers, and some research suggests that half the Pashtun tribal members in Kandahar and other southern towns are bachabazis, the term for an older man with a boy lover. Literally, it means boy player. The men like to boast about it. Quote unquote, having a boy has become a custom for us. In Atiala, a 42-year-old in Baghlan province told a Reuters reporter, whoever wants to show off should have a boy. Baghlan province this is what they say. Baghlan province is in the northeast, but Afghans say pedophilia is most prevalent among Pashtun men in the south. The Pashtun are Afghanistan's most important tribe. And they said for centuries the nation's leaders have been Pashtun. Right? President Hamid Karzai is Pashtun from the village near Kandahar, and he has 6 brothers. So the natural question arises, has anyone in the Karzai family been Bachabaz? 2 Afghans with close connections to the Karzai family told me they know that at least one family member, perhaps 2, were Bachabaz. Afraid of retribution, both declined to be identified and would not be more specific for publication. But they said that, in Kandahar's population, about 500,000, in other towns, dance parties are popular, often weekly pastime. And young boys dress up as girls, wearing makeup and bells on their feet, and dance for a dozen or more leering middle-aged men who throw money at them and then take them home. A recent State Department report called dancing boys a widespread culturally sanctioned form of male rape. So why are American and NATO forces fighting and dying to defend tens of thousands of proud pedophiles? Certainly more per capita than any other place on the earth. And how did Afghanistan become this pedophilia capital of Asia? Sociologists and anthropologists say the problem results from the perverse interpretation of Islamic law. Women are simply unapproachable. Afghan men cannot talk to an unrelated woman until after proposing marriage, and before then they can't even look at a woman except perhaps her feet. Otherwise, she is covered head to ankle. So how can you fall in love if you can't see her face? 29-year-old Mohammed Daoud told reporters, "We can see the boys, so we can tell which are beautiful." This is what he said here. He says, even after marriage, many men keep their boys, suggesting a loveless life at home. A favored Afghan expression goes, women are for children, boys are for pleasure. Fundamentalist imams, exaggerating a biblical passage on menstruation, teaching that women are unclean and therefore distasteful. One married man even asked Cardinale's team how his wife could become pregnant. Her report said, when that was explained, he reacted with disgust and asked, how could one feel desire to be with a woman who God has made unclean? So they have a very disturbed look at life, you know what I mean, at what life really is, you know what I mean. That helps explain why women are hidden away and stoned to death if they are perceived to be misbehaved. Islamic law also forbids homosexuality, but the pedophiles explain that away. It's not homosexuality because they aren't in love with their boys. That's what they say. They're just using them for sex toys, right? Addressing the loathsome mistreatment of Afghan women remains a primary goal for coalition governments, as it should be. But what about the boys? Thousands upon thousands of little boys who are victims of serial rape over many years, destroying their lives, said Afghan society. Because these little boys, these are not men, these are boys, right? These are little boys, 8 years old, 7 years old, you know, who knows how young they are. And you know, this makes me sick to my stomach, right? So there's no issue more horrifying and more deserving of our attention than this, Cardinale said. I'm continually haunted by what I saw. She says, and then they said, as one boy in tow of a man he called my lord told the Reuters reporter, once I grow up, I will be an owner and I will have my boys. So see, they just keep passing it on, generation to generation. And this is a place where pedophilia is just perfectly okay. And they stone and kill women. They rape and abuse girls. And these people, you know, they are so, you know, so messed up. You know what I mean? Like, they have it all wrong. And it's really sad. It's just unfortunate. You know what I mean? This is just one country, and this is going on around the world. It's not just, you know, it's not just Afghanistan, right? But I just wanted to bring attention to this because I didn't know. I was hoping that, you know, that somebody listening might actually not have known about this, right? This is why I fight so hard, you know, worldwide to change these situations for children, because children are not sex toys. I was not a sex toy. I was sexually abused by my brother at the age of 8 years old. He was 21. He decided to rape and sodomize me and use me sexually for a period of about 7 months. And, you know, there was no help for me, right? I mean, my mother knew about it, did nothing about it, right? And so, you know, this is not only going on in North America, man. This is going on around the world, that people think that they should be allowed to use a child sexually. Like, this is incredibly wrong. I don't care whether it's a girl or a boy. Children should be allowed to make their own choices about their sexuality, and also they should be allowed to make the choice when they choose, you know, to become interested in their own sexuality, and when they get older and they start to really, you know, want to appropriately at appropriate ages and stages of development, you know, to allow their sexuality to come to fruition, you know, to be who they are, you know what I mean? And so they should be allowed to do this on their own time, right? This pisses me off because, I mean, you know, I was made, you know, to be a sex toy at the age of 8 years old. I mean, that just makes me angry. And the thing is like, you know, I should have been able to give my virginity away when I wanted to. It was my choice. But that choice was taken away from me by somebody who felt that they had the right to do that to me, and that was my brother. And, you know, this makes me so mad, because this is people around the world think it's perfectly okay to sexually use children in whatever way, you know, whether it's molestation, rape, exploiting them. You know, this the whole thing has got to change, right? And so this is why I continue to do what I'm doing. You know, I refuse to just give up on it, you know what I mean? Because we all need to get involved and do what we can, and I like to be a voice to sort of encourage people, because I was always very interested over the years, you know, in helping people. And one of my first jobs I had was working for a not-for-profit organization. I worked there for 10 years, and what we were doing was raising funds for group homes for the mentally challenged and people with mental disabilities. And I just loved doing that job, even though I was getting paid to do it, because I was raising funds and I was a fundraiser and I was making, you know, like telemarketing, whatever. I did that for 10 years because I really believed in it, and I could see the results. You know, they were building these group homes, and it was just amazing. You know, the change in the life for these people with these mental challenges and mental disabilities. And so we used to actually go and we were allowed to meet with these people that we were actually serving, that we were actually getting these group homes for. And it was just awesome to see how happy they were, and, you know, that they were being treated properly and they were getting their needs met. It was just amazing. And so I love this kind of thing, right? I've always been interested in this kind of thing because I watched my family suffer. I watched my family be completely destroyed by my parents' ignorance and my parents' inability to control themselves, really to not hurt each other and not hurt their children. You know what I mean? And so I thought, this is so sick and wrong. It's just so incredibly sick and wrong. And I thought, I used to always be very interested as a growing up and even as a teen and as an older person in other groups who were doing this great work. And I thought, well, thank God for these people that are out here that have the balls to stand up and say something. I mean, thank God, because there's children out here who they will not have any hope. There will not be any help for them. As I know because that's how I grew up. And so, I know that this is happening worldwide, not just North America, not just in our own towns and cities and over here in Canada and the United States. I mean, this is worldwide. And so I'm always thankful that other people were doing what they do. And I never thought I could get involved. I thought I had to have a degree. I thought that I had to go to university for 20 years, and become some sort of a doctorate or whatever. And actually, no, you really don't. You just have to stand up for human rights and stand up for what is right. And protect people that are around you. If you have a lot of children in your life, protect them and make sure that they're being protected. It's very simple. And stand up and speak up about what is wrong, because it has to be a human outcry. It has to be a worldwide human outcry about the things that are happening around the world. And I'm so thankful to be a part of it. In my little small way, right? I mean, it's just my little small way of what I can do, to try to help out, right? And my little small way, along with somebody else's little small way, and somebody else's little small way, all of a sudden becomes a pretty big way to get the word out, to get the news out, to promote this education regarding what's going on out here, and to help other people, to make the right choices on behalf of their children and not hurt their children. It's all about education and awareness. You bet it is. So, that's why I like to encourage people to get involved. I used to never think, I never thought I could get involved. I was just thinking, oh man, there's no way I could just go walking over to World Vision and say, hi, I'd like to help out. I kind of just didn't see a way until 4.5 years ago, when I actually thought, oh, okay, I see a way now. I can get off the couch, I can raise my voice, I can get involved with groups that are doing some great work. It's volunteer, but hey, what else do I have better to do with my time? I still have a life, you know what I mean? I still have a life. I'm a person, I have a life, I've got a sweetheart, I've got pets, I don't have any children, because I was raped and sodomized at the age of 8 years old. So there you go. I was told that I would probably never be able to carry a child, if even to conceive a child at all, but I probably wouldn't be able to carry any. So there you go. So I lost my baby halfway through the pregnancy and never had another one. You never could. I did try. And so, the issues are that's what happened to me because I was sexually abused as a child. I know this stuff is happening to children, right? And it just bothers me that this society likes to just turn a blind eye to this. And I thought, hey, I don't mind talking about this. I'll just raise my voice and I'll just be another person out here, speaking out against this stuff. So that's why I encourage you to do the same thing and, get involved with groups that are making a good difference, in your own communities, in your own cities, wherever you live, get involved nationally, get involved with groups that are doing great stuff nationwide, in the United States and Canada, wherever you live, and get involved, internationally. There are international groups you can get involved with just to show your support, because numbers do mean something in this. It actually means everything. Numbers is what tells governments, hey, people want change. People want this intervention. People want to save children's lives. We have to do something about it. It's a public demand. It's a public, outcry, right? And if we're not crying out about this stuff, it'll just get pushed right back under the carpet. You know what I mean? And so I just think it's really important for people to realize that this stuff is still happening. This Bachabazi thing, these little boys, they're being sold. They're not being sold. They're being traded. They're just being basically forced to be sex toys, right? And this is still going on. There's more articles about it right up until 2011. So it's not stopping, right? And just because if we all close a blind eye and shut it off and don't want to see it, then it will never change, right? And so I think, we really need to promote, awareness and education, right? So get involved where you can, make a difference where you can, doing your own thing, whatever that may be. But whatever it is, make sure you do get involved, because these children are really, they don't even know that they're counting on us because they don't think there's any hope, you know what I mean? And so, but they really are counting on us, even though they don't even really realize it. Their lives are really hanging in the balance and worldwide. So get involved to help a child, right? Have a great day, everybody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. I have Kate Swift coming on my show tomorrow morning. Kate Swift out of the UK. She's an advocate. She's an author, and she's going to talk about the launch of the new book, Silent No More, from the survivors who belong to the RSOSA members group, and that's me. I'm involved in that, and so some of my stuff's published in there. So awesome. tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Mountain Standard Time. Please check my show and check Kate Swift's stuff out. That's thistangledweb.co.uk. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Talk to you soon.